It started on a Tuesday evening, the kind where the suburbs pretend everything is perfect. I was in my home office, the one overlooking the cul-de-sac of Maple Grove, sipping tea while the neighborhood looked like a postcard. Perfectly manicured lawns, American flags waving just the right height according to Section 4.2 of the Covenants. No one daring to park their truck in the driveway past 6 p.m. I knew the rules better than most because I'd helped digitize them 5 years ago, back when the HOA was still run by reasonable people who needed help, not tyrants who crave control. The Maple Grove Community Hub wasn't just a map. I built it from scratch under my LLC, Oakwood Tech Solutions. It handled everything: monthly dues, auto payments, violation tracking with photo evidence, the community calendar for block parties that no one actually enjoyed, even the security camera feeds looping 24/7 on the private server rack I paid for out of pocket. The old board had signed a contract on page 34, the one no one reads. Vendor retains full administrative custody unless revoked by full board vote. It saved the money then. It was my fortress now. My phone pinged at 9:42 p.m. Someone was trying to mass copy the entire admin folder. Not view. Clone. The credential trace led straight to Brenda Langley, the new HOA president. She'd been in the role 3 weeks, already sending out notices about my overgrown rose bushes that were exactly 2.5 inches too tall by her ruler. I stared at the screen like it had personally insulted my mother. This woman, with her pastel sweaters and clipboard smile, thought she could just replicate the heart of the neighborhood's operations like downloading a recipe off Pinterest. I had paid for the servers myself, hosted it, maintained it, while everyone else complained about parking stickers. If you're already feeling that slow burn of outrage, do me a favor and smash that like button. 97% of you forget, but it keeps these stories alive. All right, back to the madness. The next morning's board call was the usual polite nightmare. Everyone else was chatting about summer pool schedules and speed bump petitions. Brenda's little video square sat front and center, muted but smug, her pearl necklace gleaming like it was earned in battle. I watched her lips move, wondering if she had any clue what she just triggered. I said nothing. Just let the update roll. Let them make decisions off dashboards that they didn't even know lived under my LLC's jurisdiction. See, 5 years back, when Maple Grove was still small and chaotic, no real systems, just a spreadsheet and a lot of yelling at meetings, I scoped and built the whole thing in my off hours. Oakwood Tech Solutions, LLC, was born out of necessity, a clean legal wrapper that shielded both sides from IP headaches. Smart then. A fortress now, buried deep in the original master service agreement. Page 34. Sub-bullet. The line most people skim. Vendor retains full control and administrative custody of hosted operational infrastructure unless revoked by board resolution. You don't get that kind of clause approved anymore. But back then, I was the only one building anything that actually worked. Brenda never asked, never consulted. She just saw a shared drive full of deliverables and assumed it was HOA property. Rookie move. That copy attempt triggered my tripwire script, flagged the session ID, and snapshot the entire directory. Every permission, every log, every failed attempt at exfiltration. I didn't get mad. I got documentation. After the sync, I sent her a simple email. No drama, no accusations. Just, hey Brenda, noticed an unusual access attempt from your account. For your awareness, the Pine Grove Nexus environment is hosted under separate contract terms. Let me know if you'd like me to loop in legal to clarify infrastructure boundaries. Silence. Not even a thumbs up emoji. That was the first red flag. The second came 3 hours later when a junior board member pinged me, asking why the Monday violation loadout hadn't refreshed. I checked. Looked like someone had tried and failed to manually overwrite the dependency link from their local drive. It broke the reference chain. The third flag, an invoice bounce back. My automated billing system rejected the payment contact on file. Brenda had tried to consolidate vendors and deleted my invoice route. That's when I knew she wasn't just poking around. She was planning to gut the whole thing, take over the infrastructure, and probably in her head save the HOA money while streamlining operations. She had no idea what she was stepping into. She sent that email like she was ordering takeout. No subject line, no greeting, just a demand dressed up like a directive. Submit all admin passwords to the community hub immediately and clean up any personal files. Your services as systems administrator are terminated effective today. I read it 3 times, blinked, and then read it again. For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake, or maybe a phishing attempt. Who the hell fires someone over a neighborhood app and through email? But no, it was from her official HOA address. Timestamped 8:17 a.m., just minutes after our weekly metrics rolled out. Metrics she probably thought she could now access directly. If only she could find a right password to crack my drive open like a piñata. No call from the board's secretary. No Zoom invite. No explanation of cause or contract closure. Just an attempt to steamroll decades of operational nuance with the charm of a car salesman pulling a power move. I took a breath. Then I wrote the calmest email of my life. Hi, Brenda, I typed, hand steady even as my pulse pressed in my throat. Per our agreement, the Pine Grove Nexus hosted drive is managed under license and custodianship terms governed by my consulting LLC, not internal HOA infrastructure. No password is required or available as the drive does not fall under HOA IT jurisdiction. If you need clarification, I recommend checking with legal before proceeding further. I didn't sign off best or thanks, just attached the relevant clause from the master agreement. The one people always skim over. Page 34. Sub-bullet. Vendor retains exclusive administrative custody of cloud-based operational systems. Absent board-level revocation, I BCC'd the HOA attorney. Then I sat back and watched the timestamp click into history. She had no idea what she'd just done. She thought I was a temp, a line item, a cleanup crew member who overstayed her welcome. But the funny thing about community infrastructure, about real infrastructure, is that it's not loud. It doesn't advertise its importance. It just is. Until it's not. The moment that email hit my inbox, I was released from SLA obligations. That portal wasn't the HOA's. It was a managed asset under contract with clearly defined access terms, license limits, and audit trails. She didn't ask. She didn't negotiate. She terminated in writing without realizing she had just triggered a clause buried like a landmine in her own bylaws. And you know what? I wasn't even angry. There's something kind of beautiful about being underestimated by someone who thinks ownership is just about who shouts loudest at the annual meeting. So I archived the email, synced the contract logs, and watched the Pine Grove Nexus environment tick forward. Fully operational, fully licensed. Just not to her. Not anymore. There's a very specific kind of silence that happens right after someone realizes they've lit the fuse and can't find the fire extinguisher. You can almost feel it move through the air like pressure dropping before a storm. Brenda had no idea that the moment she hit send, she'd essentially fired an entire operational framework. Her email to legal was 6 words long. Please handle. See below. Thanks. No context. No urgency. Just the smug assurance of a woman who thought her title granted immunity. Legal didn't reply to her. They forwarded it straight to the board chair. 1 line. That was it. You just fired your vendor. No caps. No bold. No drama. Just a sentence so sharp it might as well have been typed with a scalpel. I got a copy of the forward through my BCC rule. Standard automation on my end. Watch the thread unfold like slow-motion chess. That was the moment the game ended. I didn't gloat, didn't even smile, just leaned back in my chair, clicked export logs, then archived the entire exchange under a folder labeled escrow.trigger 11C. Everything after that was mechanical, routine, precise. I closed the shared portal to external collaborators, synced my audit trail for third-party systems, watermarked the live environment with my LLC's logo, top right corner. Unobtrusive but unmistakable. Every single snapshot from that hour onward bore the quiet seal of ownership. Not the HOA's. Mine. The clause she tripped, buried on page 42 of the support annex, was clear as day. If at any point the contracting party issues an unapproved revocation of custodial rights, the vendor is released from all SLA and support commitments effective immediately. Effective immediately. I didn't have to call anyone. Didn't have to justify myself. The contract did the speaking. My obligations evaporated the second Brenda's little tantrum hit send. I closed my laptop, and for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel tethered to the refresh cycle. Didn't feel responsible for holding their spaghetti code processes together with duct tape and Sunday night stress. It wasn't vengeance. It was math. They broke the chain. I let go of the rope. And somewhere in legal, someone was probably flipping through a printed contract, realizing just how quietly everything had just shifted. Thursday morning looked like business as usual until it wasn't. Residents logged in expecting things to hum like always. Morning dues reminders. Load the violation reports. Review the pool reservation calendar. Pull the security feeds for last night's suspicious SUV. But instead, they were greeted by the digital equivalent of shrug. Blank tiles, empty queries, graphs that once pulsed with violation heat maps now reduced to data unavailable. Please contact administrator. Someone tried to reboot the dashboard instance. Someone else reauthorized their tokens. Another person opened a neighborhood Slack and tagged the board with missing OKRs plus sprint loadout. Wait. No, that's not right. Missing pool bookings plus violation backlog. It did what it does. Checked the logs. Saw the external path, calls failing. And pinged me directly. First by email, then text. I read each one silently and did absolutely nothing. Not out of spite. Not to prove a point. Just because I didn't have to. As of 9:04 a.m. the previous day, Oakwood Tech Solutions LLC was no longer under service level obligation. No contract. No SLA. No access guarantee. I wasn't ghosting them. I was abiding by the very paperwork they forgot existed. By noon, panic was setting in. The design committee couldn't access historical violation photos for their beautification pitch. Finance couldn't reconcile last quarter's dues heat maps. The events chair couldn't trace dependencies on user feedback workflows because the input mapping API ran through a now dark endpoint. One senior board member, bless his oblivious heart, suggested just copying the last dashboard and tweaking it locally. That's when a junior resident dropped a screenshot in the general chat and asked innocently, "Why does the dashboard now say property of Oakwood Tech Solutions, LLC? Is that like new branding?" Silence. Then a flurry of eye emojis. Then the screenshot got deleted, but the damage was already done. By Friday afternoon, for committees were effectively flying blind. No models, no logs, no access to their own scaffolding because their scaffolding wasn't theirs to begin with. They just never stopped to ask who was holding it up. And me? I went hiking, left my phone in airplane mode, packed a thermos of coffee, and walked up a ridge I hadn't visited in months. Listened to the wind, the quiet, the complete and total absence of HOA notifications trying to duct tape broken systems back together. That was the first time I realized how deeply I'd trained myself to answer calls that never respected my boundaries. And now I didn't know them a single damn thing. They called it a transition sync, but no one was fooled. The calendar invite hit inboxes at 7:52 a.m., marked urgent in all caps. Issued from Brenda's office. No agenda attached. Just a block of time and a Zoom link with too many board members in the participant list. I joined anonymously. Viewer only. No camera. No name. A courtesy copy of the meeting flowed to me through a legacy shared calendar integration they've forgotten to revoke. Brenda came in hot. Hair slicked back like she'd been up all night, trying to wrestle an explanation into something that resembled control. She started talking about streamlining infrastructure ownership and vendor phase-out alignment, trying to pass off the silence as strategy. The kind of HOA hand-waving that works on people who haven't seen what failure smells like. Then legal unmuted. One voice, crisp and surgical. You didn't read the termination clause. You severed vendor rights without board clearance. As of last Wednesday, the HOA has no legal or operational access to the Pine Grove Nexus environment. You've lost custodianship. The air left the room. You could hear someone exhale through their nose like they just realized they were sitting on a live wire. The screen shifted. A document appeared. It was my final invoice. Submitted the day the clause triggered. Line item 5 was bolded. SLA suspended per section 11C of vendor agreement. Custodial termination clause executed. You could see people scanning it in real time. Eyes darting. Jaws tightening. Someone coughed. Someone else muted. Brenda blinked like she'd been slapped with a wet contract. This wasn't, she started. Legal cut in again. All folders associated with Oakwood Tech Solutions were protected under escrow terms. Usage logs, edit trails, and attempted extractions have been archived. As of termination, all unauthorized interactions were forwarded for legal review. That part hit harder than I expected, because what they didn't know, what only legal had started to grasp, was that the compliance tracker I'd embedded wasn't just for audit fluff. It was surgical. Every document touched post-termination. Every attempt to clone a file, download a sheet, reroute a dependency. It all got logged and bundled into a neat daily digest, automatically encrypted, sent to legal. Someone on the call finally asked what everyone else was thinking. Can we fix this? Legal didn't answer, but the silence said it all. Brenda looked smaller in that moment. Not just embarrassed, reduced, like she'd thought she was playing tug of war with a puppet, only to realize she'd yanked the cord on a live system and pulled down the ceiling. And me? I sat in my kitchen, wrapped in a flannel, sipping coffee that had been brewed long before that meeting started. No rage, no smugness, just stillness. Because when you're right, contractually right, there's nothing left to argue. By noon, the platform flatlined. No preamble, no countdown, just gone. Pine Grove Nexus servers previously humming along like quiet sentinels behind every dues decision, every violation fine, every block party KPI dashboard, shut their doors to all but internal IP addresses. External sessions were dropped. Token refreshes failed. Any attempt to reestablish access hit a bloodless banner. Access suspended. Consult vendor. The design team thought it was a bug. Finance thought it was maintenance. Brenda thought she still had leverage. She did not. I was 2 streets away, walking out of the local coffee shop with my phone on silent when the text barrage started. 6 missed calls. 3 voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize. A calendar invite titled Restoration Plan Discussion. Urgent. All unanswered. Brenda, I later heard, stormed down the hallway like a woman on fire, straight into legal's glass-walled corner office. Everyone could hear her. I want her reinstated. Today. This whole thing is a disaster. Legal didn't raise their voices. They never had to. You can't. You fired the license holder. Her LLC isn't obligated to reinstate anything, especially not after termination without board review. Brenda stood there, jaw working like she wanted to fight the air itself. That's when the board chair, silent until that moment, spoke. He didn't yell, didn't mock, just looked over the rim of his glasses and asked, "Did you even know she owned the infrastructure?" Silence. Not the kind that comes from guilt, but the kind that comes from sheer, unfiltered realization. The sound of a woman understanding she wasn't the architect. She was the wrecking ball, and the building was still standing. Just not for her. Meanwhile, back on the streets, residents were trying to figure out what the hell consult vendor meant. The violation system was locked out of the entire photo archive. Finance couldn't process Q3 projections because the entire dues model suite ran through a live Oakwood instance. Someone tried to re-upload old dashboard from a stale backup and immediately got flagged by the embedded watermarking protocol. Even the events team's file library, years of iterative party plans, resident notes, localization overlays, dead in the water. Every tool they used pointed back to a cloud system that no longer recognized them. I didn't lift a finger. Didn't need to. Because when you build the thing, really build it, not as an employee, not under blanket IP assumptions, but under contractual custody, then removal isn't personal. It's just a reset to the state of things before they started taking you for granted. And I'll tell you something strange. You can feel at the exact moment the panic begins. Even 2 streets away in a sunlit cafe, eating a sandwich in absolute peace. I knew it only took 3 days for the facade to crack completely. Legal went in a full triage mode. They ransacked their archive, pulling every version of the original contract, every amendment, every access provision tied to the Pine Grove stack. What they found wasn't a loophole. It was a fortress. Every clause, every comma, airtight. My LLC's custodial rights had been baked in, signed off by the then board chair, a man who retired 2 fiscal years ago and now lives somewhere in Arizona, golfing and ignoring email. The clause Brenda violated wasn't vague. It was explicit. Any attempt to alter vendor custodianship required majority board approval, log vote, and a 30-day transition plan approved by both parties. Instead, Brenda fired off a 7-word email. That email, it turns out, cost them operational control, breached 3 separate continuity policies, and nullified any claim they had to the live community infrastructure. The audit trail proved everything down to the minute. I didn't respond to the messages that started pouring in. Not the panicked neighborhood Slack DMs. Not the last-ditch outreach from the board secretary pretending to touch base. Not the private Facebook message from Brenda's assistant, who, according to someone still on the inside, resigned on the spot after realizing she'd helped trigger the sequence. My replacement was brought in quickly. Too quickly. A contractor flown in from the next county with a padded rate and a smile like he'd just walked onto a new TV pilot. They gave him access to the building, a laptop, a briefing folder, and nothing else. When he logged into the Pine Grove Nexus dashboard, he saw a clean white screen. No permissions, no root access, no infrastructure keys, just a lockout screen that politely read, "Credentials invalid. Please contact system owner." He reached out to legal. Legal reached out to me. I didn't reply because I'd already left them everything they needed. A single PDF stored in the contract drive titled Access Governance Transition, only valid with full countersignature. It sat there like a forgotten grenade. And signed. No countersignature. No trigger. Just a document that outlined in meticulous clarity the process for handing over admin rights if, and only if, both parties agreed. It had been sitting there for years, untouched, waiting, not as a trap, but as a safety net they never bothered to understand. They wanted to bypass me, bypass the process. Instead, they bypassed their own lifeline. It came late on a Thursday. The call I knew would eventually come. Private number. No voicemail. Just persistence. 3 rings, then 4. On the 5th, I answered. It was the board chair. Voice like smooth gravel. Polite, but stretched thin. He didn't bother with small talk. Just launched straight into it like we were both reading the same grim briefing memo. "We'd like to discuss reinstatement," he said. "Not just picking up where things left off, but reestablishing continuity, possibly bringing you into an advisory support role. Flexible structure." I let him speak. Let him wrap the desperation in layers of HOA velvet. He used words like realignment, strategic recovery, clean handoff. But I heard what he didn't say. The new ops model was in shambles. The backups were stale. The dependencies too tangled. The guy they onboarded out of his depth and already whispering about legacy entanglements he couldn't even map. When he finally stopped talking, I said one thing. The contract worked as intended. Silence. Then he asked if there was anyone I'd trust to come in and stabilize things. There was. A former protege. Sharp, calm, surgical with code, and better at politics than I ever cared to be. She'd helped me build parts of the Nexus early interface when she was still green. Now she ran her own consulting outfit with a reputation for handling institutional messes without flinching. I gave him her name, her terms, and made it clear. Oakwood Tech Solutions LLC would remain the license holder. All access would now require escrow-secured, tokens rotated quarterly. Board monitored. Non-negotiable. He agreed. Didn't even try to argue. The board had already locked down infrastructure changes pending vendor oversight. Brenda's shiny new, streamlined ops roadmap was shelved indefinitely. Every system touchpoint now ran through review. I didn't ask about Brenda. Didn't care if she was still president or quietly moved to special projects. Her relevance had expired the second she confused control with authority. After the call ended, I didn't feel triumphant. There was no music swelling, no cinematic moment of glory, just a steady sense of alignment, of a boundary reinforced not out of revenge, but out of clarity. I had built something that stood, not because they liked me, not because they needed me, but because it worked. And now they had to earn their way back in, one escrow token at a time. Weeks passed. Quiet ones. No more panic pings. No legal escalations. No awkward emails pretending like nothing had happened. Just the hum of systems stabilizing under new rules. My rules. The platform came back online slowly, piece by piece. Escrow tokens activated. Access logs rebuilt from scratch. Infrastructure keys handed out like sacred scrolls. Verified, double-signed, locked behind quarterly resets. No more convenience logins. No more shadow copies. Every committee now had to request access like it was a privilege, not a right. And in the bottom corner of every dashboard, just beneath the login fields, sat the new disclaimer. Infrastructure and Data Custodianship by Oakwood Tech Solutions, LLC. Licensed through 2026. No internal override permitted without board ratification. Simple, quiet, permanent. I hadn't written it to gloat. I wrote it to remind. At the next HOA annual meeting not long after, the board chair took the stage for a session on operational risk and continuity. I wasn't invited. Didn't want to be, but I watched the live stream muted as he shifted in his chair and used words like lesson learned and strategic overreach. Then he paused and gave the room a line I hadn't expected. This wasn't about sabotage, he said. It was a lesson in respecting vendor boundaries. Some systems aren't broken. They're just built by someone who remembers what trust used to mean. He didn't say my name. Didn't need to. Back in my home office, the morning light poured in through the blinds. My coffee had gone lukewarm. The stream rolled on. No smile crossed my face. No victory dance. Just stillness. The kind of stillness that comes when you've said everything you needed to through design. discipline, and dotted lines. When your name doesn't have to be on the screen to shape the outcome. When control isn't about attention, it's about architecture. And that final thought settled in like dust on polished glass. Control isn't loud. It's silent until someone tries to take it.